John 13, verse 34, and the scene is the Last Supper. Jesus is breaking bread and pouring out wine, and he says to his disciples, I give you a new commandment, love one another as I have loved you. And in a sense, it's a new thing, it's a new concept, a new principle. And in another sense, it's ancient, it's from the beginning of time, of course. But it's a new voice, a new yearning upon the earth. And it came out of Israel. And Israel had built up a whole system of regulations and rules to keep themselves separate from the rest of the world. All the kosher, all the dietary principles, all this sort of stuff was to keep the outside world out. It was exclusive. It was hands off, restrictive, inward looking. And Jesus bursts through it and shows a love that was new in its extent. The Jewish way was love your neighbour but hate your enemy. And Jesus said, you have heard it said, but I say to you, love your enemy. And they say, well, who is my neighbour? And he tells the story of what that we call the Good Samaritan. But don't forget that Jews grew up with the idea of Samaritan being a byword for outsider, no good, second class. And Jesus says, that's the one. That's the one who shows what it really is to be a good neighbour. Love your enemies. And this is the very heart of Christianity. Not a law, not a system of religion, but a spirit. Not a creed, but life itself. And to this one motive of love and loving and being loving, God entrusts the whole work of changing the world to this one thing. That's the meaning of the cross. That's why all these guys are wearing crosses around their neck. That's what it means. It means love is stronger than death. Because the human heart is designed for love. Love expands the spirit and hatred contracts it, reduces it, keeps it in, narrows it down. Only in love can you expand. And so here comes this one who could look with insight into the springs of human action and proclaim the simplicity of that machinery. Love. Love first. And Paul said, love is the fulfilling of the law. Now, to understand that, you just have to think of the law. Think of the simplest parts of the law. Think of the Ten Commandments, right? Think of, let's pick 6, 7 and 8 of the Ten Commandments. You know, do not murder, do not steal, do not commit adultery. Okay, and you might think that you don't murder or steal because there are certain penalties appended to those things because of the law. If I murder someone, I may go to prison, and so I will not murder. That's my motivation for not murder. I will not steal because I may go to prison. I may have a fine, so I will not steal. And they're not so hot on adultery these days, are they? But you might not commit adultery because of the fear of discovery or something like that. But take those laws and now put the spirit of love into it. So I love you. I'm not going to steal your property if I love you. I'm not going to kill you if I love you. How can I point a rifle at some... How does that work? How can I commit adultery and break my wife's heart? How can I degrade the spirit of the one that I'm with? So these things are conquered by the spirit of love. Love changes the way that you look at law. The law doesn't bind or restrict you. It's not an outward command, it's an inward principle. And it's the proclamation of this great principle of human obedience, not fine words, not a bold concept or something, but a simple reality of life. And Jesus says, this is new. Love in the way that I have loved you. What does that mean? Broadly speaking, it means giving, doesn't it? It means giving all you have to give. Jesus said, greater love has no one than this, that one should lay down his life for his friend. And so Christ's love was not a feeling, it was a giving. even his enemies agreed. They said, he saved others, himself he cannot save. Isn't that incredible? That they're trying to insult him, but what they're doing is enunciating the very principle of what he's doing. Because he saved others, he can't save himself. How can you do both? How can you give something away and retain it? How can you keep what you give? How can you live for yourself when you're living for others? So unconsciously, those enemies standing around the cross were spelling out what Jesus was all about. And it's the law of life, it's the law of existence. Only by losing yourself can you save others. Only by giving life can you bless, because love always gives itself. You think of the mother and the pain in childbirth that is swallowed up in the joy of a new baby. The mother gives herself to that situation. Or a soldier taking up arms for his country. Love lays down its life for another. He saved others, himself he cannot save. That is the love of Christ. He says, love this way, love this way. And Jesus showed this in his life just as much as in his death. And maybe in another clip we'll look at the way that Jesus loved in his life. Not just a concept connected with the cross, it's the very stuff of living itself. We'll save it for another day. God bless you today.